The basement. It had been years since Anna had visited her childhood home, but after her father's sudden death, she had no choice but to return and settle his affairs. The house felt strange, quieter than she remembered, though that was probably due to its being empty for so long. Her father had lived alone for years after all. The funeral had been earlier that morning, a small affair with only a few distant relatives and neighbors attending. Now, Anna was alone, walking through the old creaky halls of the house where she'd grown up. Her father's things were still everywhere. His slippers by the door, his jacket hanging on the back of a chair, and the faint smell of pipe smoke lingering in the air. Anna tried to focus on the task at hand, sorting through paperwork, boxing up his belongings, and preparing to sell the house. It was old and far too large for her to keep. Besides, it held too many memories. But one thing kept nagging at her: the basement. Growing up, the basement had always been off limits. Her father had been strict about that rule. "It's dangerous down there," he used to say. But as Anna got older, she realized there had to be more to it than that. He was a private man, secretive, and she'd always suspected he kept something down there. But what? With him gone now, the basement was the only part of the house she hadn't been through. She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was down there might offer some clue about who her father really was in his final years. Her hands shook as she found the old key hanging on a hook in the kitchen. It was small and rusted, clearly meant for the heavy padlock on the basement door. For a moment, she hesitated. Maybe it was better not to know. But curiosity and years of unanswered questions drove her forward. The padlock opened with a groan, and the door swung inward, revealing a set of steep wooden stairs leading into darkness. She flicked the light switch on the wall, but nothing happened. The bulb must have burned out long ago. Grabbing a flashlight from the kitchen, she made her way down, each step creaking ominously beneath her weight. The basement smelled of damp earth and something else, something musty, like mildew but stronger, more metallic. The beam of her flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing shelves lined with old tools, jars of nails and other forgotten items. But there was nothing out of the ordinary. Just an old, cluttered basement. She exhaled, feeling foolish for letting her imagination get the better of her. But then the light caught something unusual. In the far corner, partially hidden by a stack of crates, was a large, heavy wooden door. It was unlike the rest of the basement, almost out of place, and it had a thick iron bolt securing it shut. Her heart began to race. What was her father hiding behind that door? Anna hesitated again, her mind racing with possibilities. She knew she should probably just leave it alone. But the same stubborn curiosity that had driven her to the basement wouldn't let her walk away now. With trembling hands, she slid the bolt free and pulled the door open. The smell hit her first, overwhelming and foul, like rotting meat. She gagged, covering her nose with her sleeve. Shining the flashlight into the room, she saw it was small, like a storage room or an old root cellar. But there were no jars of vegetables or canned goods here. Instead, in the center of the floor was a large metal table, its surface stained dark with something she didn't want to think about. Her father had never been a hunter, had he? She had no memory of him ever mentioning anything like that. But there, hanging from hooks along the ceiling, were tools, sharp, gleaming knives, saws and instruments she couldn't even name. And then, in the corner, she saw something worse. Chains. Shackles bolted to the wall, stained with dark brown streaks. Anna's blood ran cold. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Had her father, was he capable of something like this? She backed out of the room, her breath coming in shallow gasps, when her foot hit something on the floor. The flashlight beam wavered, and she looked down. A small, leather-bound journal. Her father's handwriting covered the cover, but the words were barely legible, as though written in haste. She flipped it open, her hands trembling so badly that the pages almost tore. The entries were brief, scrawled in a messy, frantic script. The date started years ago, around the time her mother had died. It was filled with ramblings, paranoia about them, watching, about keeping them hidden, and needing to protect the world. The entries grew darker, more deranged, filled with talk of experiments, of purging evil. And then, one of the last entries stopped her cold. I can't control it anymore. I thought I could, but it's stronger than I am. God help me, if anyone finds this, don't go in the basement. Don't let it out. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She turned toward the door she had just opened, and then she heard it. A soft shuffle, the sound of something moving in the darkness beyond the door. Something alive. Her heart pounded as she stumbled up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind her. She jammed the key into the padlock, hands shaking, locking it tightly. Whatever her father had hidden down there, whatever he had kept down there, she wasn't going to let it out. But as she stood there, gasping for breath, she heard a faint scratching sound from the other side of the door. Something was trying to get out, and the padlock didn't seem strong enough to hold it.